We have this seminar, but we have YouTube live also right now. We are live on the YouTube, so a lot of people I am sure would be joining. We've marketed this also event, and to do the my of course role, I would introduce Mr. R. Gopal Krishnan. Before that, uh, we are missing the co-author of the book today, Mr. Rishikesh Bhattacharya, because he's unwell. The heat that it is, we know that, and but fortunately we have Mr. Gopal Krishnan. Mr. Gopal Krishnan has been involved in multiple organizational transformations during his professional career of over 50 years. Yes, that's what I can see here in Unilever and Tata's. He is actively engaged in both instructional and inspirational speaking, and this is his 19th book that we are having. He has also been the president at All India Management Association and has been here at AMA also multiple times. So we have been privileged to have him multiple times. So thank you, sir, once again for coming. And I'll hand it over to him to once we will launch the book first, and then we will have sir's talk. And sir, we will also need, apart from the talk from the book, your guidance on how we can actually take clues from the book and also convert into some skilling programs that we can have at Ahmedabad Management Association. Right. Thank you, sir. We can.
Your packaging is so good, I don't feel like opening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, will you be comfortable from here or howsoever you're comfortable? Yes, as a token of our appreciation, sir. Thank you for coming. And this is what. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You got the right name, but the weather outside is not matching with Savan. So,
And certainly not far out off with my dress at least.
but it's a great pleasure to be at AMA. As you have mentioned, I have done 19 books, and I think of the 19, with the exception of the COVID season, I think 12, 13 books have been launched here. Sunil Bhai and all know, Mr. Radia knows. In fact, when they hear that I've written another book, they run away. Today, it's very kind of you to have come. But it's a pleasure to be here because from my days as the president of All India Management Association, I know that if there is one Chanchal Shaktipurn LMA who keeps winning the prize every year and almost gives a chance to other people, it is AMA. I've always wondered, इतना इसमें जोश कहाँ से आता है? But कहीं से तो आता होगा. Otherwise, it can't be sustained for 40, 50 years. So my congratulations to all the members of AMA. And I know that nowadays logistics in the city and all are very difficult. So I'm glad that you're putting it on YouTube so that more people can get it. I apologize for my co-author, Rishikesh Bhattacharya. He lives in Chicago and they are not used to our heat. So that must have got him. He had a long travel. He's come only for this book, but he's not able to be here today. So please excuse. Uh, my purpose of talking for the next 15, 20 minutes, maybe, and then we can have an interaction,
Yes.
is about this book that we have co authored, Embrace the Future. And I must start by answering the question, what is this about embracing the future? Haven't we always been embracing the future? What is the need for another book on it? And I think to the best of my knowledge, there is no other book which captures something about the future without talking about artificial intelligence and language models and AI, because everybody thinks the future is of technology. But the future is of strategy and it's of human response to strategy. We have a distinguished former professor of IIM over here, and he runs a strategy program. So I'm very nervous because I'm speaking about his subject in front of him. But anyway, so here is the reason why you should be interested in this subject. When take it out of the context of business and enterprise, think of it in your life, think of it in national affairs, society, and you'll find that although human beings have been adapting to change for centuries, for thousands of years, otherwise, otherwise we would not be here. There's always frictional loss because society doesn't welcome it collectively. If you want to make a big change in AMA, Mr. Sawan will find that it's not that easy. And Mr. Unmesh will also have come to the same conclusion. So you have to think about how to bring that change in. It's the same in the country. It is same for the state. It is same for your society. It's same for your building society, where we call it cooperative society, but all uncooperative people are brought into one building. And it is very difficult. नाम है cooperative society, but अंदर में सब uncooperative. Clubs, it happens in sports clubs. So you see it happens within families. That the family is supposed to be one, but they are all moving at different speeds, and families are having to separate, sometimes acrimoniously. And the reason is very simple. Human beings are intellectually adaptive, but socially unadaptive. Because intellectual adaptation happens through the left brain, which is logic, rationality. And so we are taught, if you become a student of management or get a diploma from AMA, you're taught how to think rationally and you learn rational things, physics, chemistry, accountancy, etc. But the other part of your brain, the right part, is very slow to adapt. And therefore, the two-speed brain, like double engine we talk about in politics, our double engines don't work together sometimes. And that is what causes things to move a bit slowly. You see, the human brain, our limbs have adapted, our ways of living have adapted, but our brain is exactly the same as it was 5,000 years ago. And that is the evidence that the brain adapts far more slowly than the body. Now, we want to embrace the future because the left brain is telling us tomorrow won't be like yesterday. But the right brain is saying, bhai, aaj ka din nikalo, kal dekha jayega. When people get married, each one thinks the other one has to adapt to the other person. I'm not saying him or her because I may create a problem for myself. Both. But actually, the double engine has to work. Otherwise, the marriage cannot sustain, right? I always pride myself that I have adjusted as much to my wife as my wife has adjusted to me. Otherwise, we would not be married 55 years, right? When you have a different equation that that person must adapt to my, then you have a problem. So, in short, we are very good at embracing the past. I can show you photographs. You can meet your school friends. You can meet your college friends, IIM reunions, and you can see pictures and you can see that the past is easy to embrace because you have it recorded in some form, physical form. But what is the future? It's a right brain activity. You have to imagine it. And embracing something that's imaginary is like embracing the mistress you don't have because it's imaginary and you don't know. So we thought this subject is very important because there is no doubt that much is changing around us. Much is changing. I don't need to explain that. I don't need to talk about it. But I will not be talking about technology change, artificial intelligence, and all those things. Lots of training courses are going on, artificial intelligence. But what about the natural intelligence? उसका ट्रेनिंग कौन कर रहा है? So I must tell you a little bit about, therefore, this is a subject that should interest you. And what I have found is that there are lots of books on strategy, the left brain activity. You will find Michael Porter, Clayton Christensen. If you want a list of all the books, ask Professor Atanu Ghosh, he will tell you. Each one is about 300-400 pages and very difficult to understand. It will appeal to your left brain. Then you have a separate set of books. It's almost like one is this party, the other is the other party. Jim Collins, John Cotter, who talk about the behavioral side. They are independent books. And you go to a course, somebody will teach you the behavioral side, somebody will come and teach you the strategy side. Both are gurus, but nobody puts it together. That is left to you. So what we have done in this book, and that is the reason why I think it's an interesting twist, that we have put both together. My colleague, who's not here, Rishi Bhattacharya, he's a thinker, he's an intellectual. You know, all Bengalis are a bit like that. बहुत सोचते हैं ज़्यादा. And he is very strong on strategy. And one day we have worked together for a long time, and we had a friendly discussion as to which is more important, knowing what to do or how to implement it. I was of the view that how to implement is more important. He was of the view that what to do is more important. What to do means strategy. How to do means the soft side. Finally, we said, why are we arguing just because we are friends? You need both. But we looked for a book which has both in it and which is practical and not academic. I'm sure there are books, but I feel that there are not enough books. And both of us are practitioners. We thought we could bring a very practical angle. So this book is full of examples from Tata, from Levers, from Microsoft, from Google, from cell phones, from medicine to building industry. How to think of a very, very old industry like a building industry, construction industry, how to think of it differently. And you'll find these are very practical examples. I doubt if you'll find any jargon in it, which you find difficult to understand. So, I've come here to praise our book. I've done so. But now I should leave it there and tell you a little bit about how this book came about. And I have been influenced personally by two books, which I have read in the last 10, 15 years, because I have been asking myself the question, why is it so difficult to implement change? When I began my career, 55, 57 years ago, once in a while, the chairman or the CEO would say, we're going to have some major reorganization. Right? By the time I finished my career, it was happening all the time. In other words, adjustment and reorganization is a permanent feature now. In those days, you called somebody and said, you take charge of this reorganization. Now the CEO has to direct it himself. And if it has moved into the center part of the CEO's agenda, as much as improving the performance, the share price, the profitability, then are we giving it the space that it needs? And I do believe, Mr. President, since you mentioned, the learnings of this book can be converted into a workshop or a class or whatever you want to call it, where we help people how to be future leaders. I actually run on my social media, on YouTube, something called the Tomorrow Leader. कि कल का leader कैसा रहेगा? How is he different from कल का leader, meaning yesterday's leader? कल का leader is different from कल का leader. And you have people like the Professor Atanu Ghosh, who can bring the academic content. And Rishi Bhattacharya, you have not met him, has been teaching in the University of Michigan with C.K. Prahlad. So he also has a good academic orientation. And we can put together some sort of a workshop on this embracing the future, give it whatever name you want, and try how to develop it. Because the biggest challenge in our becoming a developed nation by 2047, not the biggest challenge, one of the big challenges is we are not thinking about tomorrow. I mean, one man thinking at the top about tomorrow is not good enough. We all have to learn to think about tomorrow rather than yesterday. And I think this is a contribution that AMA can make. But this started working in my mind about 10, 15 years ago. And I was very influenced by Paul Kennedy's book. Paul Kennedy's written a book called The Rise and the Fall of the Great Empires. It's history. And I studied the Ming dynasty of China. I studied the Mughal dynasty in India. I studied the Ottoman Empire from Turkey and two or three others. And I found there's a standard pattern. The rise is very fast, but the decline is very slow. So you look at the Mughal Empire, it started around 1500 with Babur. It finished about 1700, 1800 with Bahadur Shah Zafar, 300 years. But the peak was in Akbar's time. And Akbar came after Babur in 40 years, 50 years. And then it leveled off. Jahangir, Shah Jahan, by the time after Aurangzeb, it took 100 years after Aurangzeb for it to collapse. The same with the Ottoman Empire, the same with the Ming dynasty. And I said, why do we get this asymmetric parabola where the rise is fast and the decline is slow? It's almost like a rocket, a space scientist shooting a rocket. It goes up and then it takes its time to fall down. And I was intrigued to learn what is it that causes the rise? What is the booster rocket in it? What causes the rise, I found, is there is ambition, there is energy, there is innovation, there is outward lookingness, and it is unrelenting. Lage raho munna bhai. And in all these empires, you will find it goes. Even the Congress party, not to become political, but the rise of the Congress party, if you forget the politics of it, and then how Gandhiji came and did whatever he did, was fantastic in its time. Then comes the decline period, this long decline, because you start looking inward, you become conservative, you become lazy, indolent. Chai pana ka paisa ho gaya hai. If see business families, there are very well-known business families in this city who are the primary drivers of industrialization, and you can see it everywhere. So the great lesson from that is that those who embrace the future survive and carry on. Those who embrace the past decline. Now, how do you disengage from embracing the past and embrace the future? This is the heart of this book and what we have written. Now, we keep saying lots of things are changing. Technology is changing. Society is changing. When my wife and I got married so many years ago, it is different from my daughter-in-law getting married to my son, and it will be different when their children get married. And we get obsessed with the pace of change. I've seen a lot of presentations from consultants and thinkers, good presentations, saying that everything is changing. If you don't adjust to AI, you'll be finished. This, that. It is true. But then, Damuru baj ke to you can't sort of adapt, Adaptation requires you to be able to understand the change and cope with the change. Now, the tools to cope with change are also increasing exponentially. Today, sitting here with your cell phone, you can find out whether the plane is landing in Ahmedabad airport. And you can arrive there at the right time. So the tools are also changing. What happens to us is when we fail to adapt to that gap. So when I began my career, they said computers are coming. Computer aega to sab khatam ho jayega. Which is true and untrue, depends on how you look at it. But We went to the bank. I'm sure people of my age group here will say, you went every Saturday to the bank, got your khata with ball pen, and then you would have to check his arithmetic, huh, to see whether he's made an adding mistake. Now we don't even look at it. You don't even think about it. It just happens by itself, as it were. So don't get fussed with the pace of change. Get fussed with the gap between the pace of change and the pace of adaptation. I call this the adaptation quotient, AQ. We have all been taught IQ. We have all been taught EQ. I don't have to explain what those mean. I'm adding a third one, AQ. When you begin your career, you're selected from IIM for having high IQ, smart boy, good CGPA. When he comes to the middle of his career, you see he can't get along with people, or he can get along with people, good EQ. But when he comes to be the leader at the age of 50, 55, 60, has he got good AQ? Can he keep pace with what is changing? So the transition from pure IQ to a little bit of IQ, little bit of EQ, to a little bit of IQ plus EQ plus lots of AQ is the future leader's definition. But how do you do that? I'm suggesting that AMA can work on it because I think it will be a good contribution. I don't know if it's unique contribution, but academics across the road can work with you to see how to provide such. And I have found that the best, although the book does not have all these examples which I'm telling you, but I'm trying to tell you what's not in the book, having in the hope that the book will be intriguing enough for you to buy and read. But nature is a very good teacher. And we somehow in our approach don't have time for nature. I mean, you don't need Baba Ramdev to tell you don't know how to breathe. But most of us don't know how to breathe. But when Baba Ramdev tells you, you sit in front of the TV and do ho, 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 ho. Right? Because something you took for granted, he's pointed out, you're not doing right. So it's the simplest things in life that we fail to do properly because we are chasing more complex things. And that is the riddle that we have to solve. I'll give you an example. We think we are all stationary and sitting here. But you know, the earth is never still. It is working 24/7. And it's working in a way where you don't feel it is moving, but actually it's moving. You have to work that way. In other words, they call it sadhana. That when you are working all the time, but yet in a calm environment, that's the way the earth works. There are also lessons you can learn from it. We know when you see these movies on the Serengeti Park, nature parks, that competition is what creates adaptation. When the leopard runs after a deer, it creates adaptation. But we would like our business to be in a low competition area because अपना गाड़ी चल रहा है. ज़्यादा competition आ गया then we'll say China ये कर रहा है, वो ये कर रहा है. Ministry में जाओ यार कोई application दे के आओ कि उसका import duty बढ़ा दो. These are, I've also done it. I'm not blaming anybody. I've also done the same thing. But it is competition that drives adaptation. That's why in political systems, they say you must have competition, Labour Party and Conservative Party. If Conservative Party has all the seats or 70% of the seats, then the Labour Party becomes non-functional. So you want a good balance. The third lesson is we chase size. We want to be the biggest, the richest, the fastest growing. And there are pink papers which will put your photograph there and say he created this empire. And अच्छा लगता है ना? You don't mind seeing your picture in the pink paper in the morning. But frankly, nature tells you that the biggest is not the one who wins. The dinosaur died. It is the smallest and the most adaptive that win. The longest living species is the virus and the bacteria. They are much older than dinosaurs. They're still there. They remind you periodically, we hum hai, COVID. हमारा 19 है, 20 नंबर आ रहा है. The number of books I write matches with COVID. 19th book, COVID-19. अभी हमारा 20 आएगा अगस्त में. I am not hoping that there's a COVID-20, by the way. Our traditional knowledge, if you go to any guru, not to learn religion, but to learn how to live a good life, he will say, keep your body moving, but keep your mind still. यहाँ पे स्थिर होना चाहिए. That's why they tell us to practice meditation. But what do we do in our companies? Keep your mind moving and the body may be still. So we put on weight, but we think our mind is working very much. We do the opposite inadvertently. So there are these two parts, and we have to create a double engine out of it, the strategic part and the human part. And I want to give you, when you change, you're never sure whether you're changing too fast, whether you're changing the right things at the right time. But essentially, in any change program, any transformation program, you ask yourself 4 or 5 questions, which are there in the book. What is the purpose? Why am I doing this? You know, those days are behind you when you just said, "And I'm making some steel rods so that it can be used." But why do you make the steel rod? I want to make money. What are you going to do with the money? And so on and so forth. You go move backwards and you find you're obsessed with purpose. Jamshedji Tata started Tata. I'm sorry, I'm taking examples of Tata and Lever, not because I want to praise them, but मुझे और कुछ आता नहीं है. हाँ? But even you take your own industrialists from this city, Lalbhai, Sarabhai, you'll find the same thing in their books, and there are books and material available. They had a purpose. कि समाज के लिए कुछ करना है. हाँ? Bajaj, all these companies. And you must have a purpose. Then you must have a targeted future. Having growth. Did I press something? Yeah, I did, I think. It doesn't matter. Huh? Having growth for the sake of growth makes no sense. If you got a 5-year-old son or daughter and you keep on feeding him, कि जितना मोटा होगा उतना अच्छा है, you won't have your son or daughter for very long. You have to have a balance. Growth for what purpose? But we are in a mode now in business where startups think कि by the time I'm 3 years old, I must have a valuation of $2 billion. बिलियन से कम और डॉलर की बात होती है, रुपये की बात बंद हो गई है. These are not very good, in my opinion. These have happened for a variety of reasons, which is not the subject of today's discussion. So we've got these two parts in the book where we say, think of your purpose, set a targeted future, look at all the alternative routes to get to the targeted future. Discuss amongst your people and choose one, and then go after it. But be ready to change it because you're never sure you've chosen the right path. That's the second part of the book, which is the strategic part. I'm simplifying it and summarizing it so that we have enough time for a little discussion. The first part of the book says, once you've applied your mind and done your left brain analysis of what to do with strategy and how to adapt for the future, then you must figure out how to do it. Because it won't happen because you sat in your corner office and dreamt it up. Are people buying into what I'm saying? Am I changing things too fast? How do you know whether you're changing things too fast or not? And this happens whether you're in government, companies, public sector, families, and everything. So it's a very common thing that happens. The grandfather worked very hard sitting on a gaddi. The son took it over and he was wearing a trouser and he had an office. And the next son went to Harvard and he came back and said, "Oh, बाप दादा जो कर रहे हैं सब useless है, कुछ और करो." And there's a tension. Most of us know of it. Some of us have experienced it. And then people go their own way and they deal with it. We have convinced ourselves with education. None of these is wrong, but they are not right either. You know, it's possible not to be wholly right and be partly wrong, or wholly wrong and partly right. It's possible. Because we think we know a lot. You think about it. What we are seeing in our visual range of frequencies is only limited. A hawk, because its eye structure is different, can see far further than we can. That's why Garuda was able to tell Ramchandraji, who came and took away and what did I see? Bees can see ultraviolet light, which you and I can't see. So they see things in different colors. Sunil Parekh is sitting in front of me, he just seems to be wearing a maroon shirt and a black trouser. But if a bee was saying, he says, "Ba rangila hai," he see other colors. Maroon maybe there's a combination of colors. Different sort of, we all know that bats navigate through sound. And we know that we can hear things only from 40 cycles to 200 cycles, to 20,000 cycles. But there is a frequency below that and a frequency above that. And so the challenge for the leader of tomorrow, who's going to embrace the future, is to see the invisible, to hear the inaudible, and to feel what cannot be felt. Now, this sounds like a Guruji telling you, how do you do it? That's the question. And in the book, we have got several, which takes lessons from nature, because you can't run a class on this, how to see the. I want to give you one simple story which illustrates the point. There is something called a world pigeon race. Are you aware? Anybody knows? No? It sounds funny, no? World pigeon race. But there is. It's not started last year. It has been going on since 1870. They come in France to a place called Nantes, written as Nantes, Nantes. And everybody comes with this pigeon, like a dog show. They're very proud of their pigeons. And then when the gun goes, they all fly. They fly across the English Channel and they land in a loft in Britain. And first, second, third, all that stuff happens at the other end. ये लोग जाके अपना private plane लेके भागते हैं. This race has been going on for 100+ years. But suddenly in 1995, something very unusual happened. This is not in this book, but in another book which I've written. None of the pigeons reached the other end. मर गया. The question arose कि ये हुआ क्या? Now, after a lot of studies, here's what happened. The pigeon race started when there were no supersonic planes, 1875 or something. When a supersonic plane flies over the English Channel, it lets go a funnel of subsonic sounds below 40 cycles, which you and I can't hear, but pigeons can hear. So these pigeons left the loft in Nantes, and when they were crossing the English Channel, the Concorde left Paris or London on its way to New York. उलझन में पड़ गए सब. And they could not navigate anymore. They died. This is what happens when you bring change too fast, and if it's too slow, then nothing happens. And this is the challenge that you have. And one of the things we have covered in this is that if you want to listen to the inaudible, then leaders must go and talk to the most vulnerable people in the organization. Because leaders get locked up in their own echo chamber. And the example is given of Shastriji, who was told in 1964 that there's a guy called Kurian in Anand, in Gujarat, and he's doing some wonderful work, Operation Flood. So come, they'll make a presentation to you, or we'll call them here. He said, I'll go to Kheda. I want to stay one night with a farmer. He should not know that I'm the Prime Minister. फलती मार के जमीन पे बैठ के बाजरा के रोटी खाएंगे उसके साथ. I just want to have a chat with him. They said, this is very difficult, security. But it was arranged. And he went and sat down. And the next morning, he took a walk around, Gai Bhais Dekha. Then he said, now you'd make your presentation to Dr. Kurian and his colleagues. And then he pressed the button for Operation Flood. And it is, from being a world's biggest importer of milk powder, we have become the world's exporter of milk milk powder now. This is what I mean by saying listen to the most vulnerable people. In my company, Hindustan Lever, the chairman had a practice that some days, 5 days or 10 days in a year would be earmarked. He would go to the market without Paltan, general sales manager, sales director, falana tika, sab saath mein jayenge, to you know what happens. He'll go and say, my name is so and so. लाइफ बॉय कैसा बिक रहा है, क्या प्रॉब्लम है, एंड देन ही विल बी टोल्ड कि इसका क्वालिटी ठीक नहीं है, आपका माल ठीक से आ नहीं रहा है, ऑल दैट स्टफ. It made a big difference because he went to the least listened to people. You know, some distributor sitting in a small town. How many CEOs go and talk to their distributors without their Paltan with them? Not many. I'm sure there are others, but Hindustan Lever, आज तक वही चल रहा है हिंदुस्तान लीवर में. So, to make sense of the changing world, you have to learn the art of seeing the invisible, listening to the inaudible, and feeling the stuff that cannot. And then, if you have a radical ambition, now today we say we want to be Viksit Bharat in 2047. Well, I don't know, but somebody up there probably knows, I hope. How will we become Viksit Bharat? Right? It requires a complete rethinking. And I'm not suggesting nobody's thought about it. I'm not suggesting I'm smarter than somebody else sitting there. Of our education system, our health system, of our ability to administer. Everything we look to the central government. It's not possible. Rajaji said, India is a governmentless civilization. बगैर सरकार का पंचायत अपने अपने समाज के तरफ से चलते. How will you make a modern version of that? So I'm sure there are smart people who are looking at these aspects. But just setting an ambitious target that my market cap will be 100 billion, 200 billion is not good enough. You need the soft side also to work with it. Maybe I think I can go on and on. Well, the problem with writing a book is that you're full of yourself. But I hope I've given you a sense of what is in the book. I hope I've given you the feeling that this is a book worth reading and thinking about. And I hope if your committee under Savanji agrees, that you can create some pedagogy around it, to which I'm telling you my co-author and I are happy to make a contribution. And let's wake up everybody. Not wake up. That gives the impression everybody is sleeping. No. We have to make them more alert. You know, like in COVID time, we were not all sleeping. But you're not washing your hands 10 times a day. You have to do it. Somebody has to tell you that. The same sort of principle. And make our small contribution as leaders of enterprises to making a Viksit Bharat, which is in the interest of everybody. It doesn't matter which political party you belong to. That's something that's in our common interest. So thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you. I'm very happy to take questions or have a fireside chat with the president and bring in Savan for you in this hot weather. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely enlightening some of the views, and I think we will open up for sure. And very important, sir. You mentioned this IQ, EQ, and then you got this AQ, and I think yes, probably I would have not thought about it. A lot of people would have, but this AQ, IQ, EQ, leadership skills, technical skills, everything gets developed. Some or the other platforms are available. Would there be a skill to develop an AQ? And if yes, what would be that? Would be the books like this, or would be the workshop on the books like this? Because that's the ideal thing, that delta between the change and the adaptation that you mentioned. That's something which is there's so many companies ready with the fabulous vision 2030. But then what happens in 2030 if nothing happens in 2025, 26, 27? So there would be a course, then certainly that, and it cannot happen just at 1, 2, 3. That you also mentioned most vulnerables. So most vulnerable would also be part of that vision 2030. If I have to adapt, I have to implement, I have to reach that or achieve that strategy or vision of 2020. So probably that one thing, whether we call it a fireside catch, is chat, and one more thing. And I think I understand that this is very close to your heart. That what was we were discussing. You use the word purpose. Now, purpose is also equally important. Is not only that $100 billion of market cap that I have to be. Now, how, what, where do I play? How do I play? And what is the larger purpose that I am playing? What and where and how? Also, that so how does this percolate in a system at large, so that when we become a Viksit Bharat, it is not just a Viksit Bharat. It is a Viksit Bharat. It is a worthwhile a Viksit Bharat. It is not just achieving everybody has a car that they want to drive, or you have the best of the infrastructure there. So maybe this would be my thoughts on the questions, and we will open up sooner. You want to answer this, or we can take more questions?
I would like to
Yeah.
answer. Come. You know, I don't. If you want to get a discussion on purpose, you can put it at a very academic level. But I want to give it a very practical level. The purpose is when you want to accomplish something which is bigger than yourself or your family or your business. And I'll give you an example because I've written a book on it, not on purpose, on HDFC. Mr. Hasmukh Parekh, who is the uncle of Deepak Parekh, was already the chairman of a bank. I forget which bank it was, Indian Bank or. And he is either retired or about to retire. So he must have been 55, 60 in those days. I'm talking of 1970s. And he said, now that I'm retiring, I have to think of where to stay. And he said, why should this be? I have worked my whole life honestly and decently. I have to now think. My father was the same. I'm sure many people here have such a similar experience in their families. So in the 60s, he said, I want to set up a company to enable a common person, he had some definition of common person, middle class, to own an apartment before they retire. It doesn't matter if it's a 2-bedroom house, but एक security आता है. Now, I call that purpose. I want to be in the building industry and make money. Fine. I'm not here to judge whether that's good or bad. But here is something that Hasmukh Bhai said. How can I set up a company when nobody is willing to lend money? जिसके पास asset है, उसको loan नहीं जरूरत है, और जिसके पास asset नहीं है, उसको loan की जरूरत है. How do I? And he came to an insight. I've written about this in the book that I've written. A very clever insight. He said the middle class woman is the key to the success. The man will take the loan and then he will, if he makes good money, he will finish it off in other forms. But the woman family izzat is very important. Middle class women's family izzat is what is my mortgage. And so they started giving loans initially 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, which is a lot of money in the 70s, by the way. And the woman said, आपका पैसा आपको हर महीना मिल जाएगा और हर साल मिल जाएगा. And now you see HDFC is India's largest bank. Deepak Bhai came and he took it forward. So that is purpose. I want to mention Jamshedji Tata because I am worked in Tata. Back in the 1800s, he said, India must get steel because the nation that has steel will rule the world. It's taken 100 years for India to become a steel-making nation. Otherwise, even when I joined Tata's, nobody thought of India as a steel-making company. Today, we got JSW, Tata's, many others. So, purpose is something that takes a long time to come.
Finally, will know that he also makes steel.
Right. So, I think of purpose as not dissimilar to getting married. When you get married, you take a vow. We take it very lightly. We tell the panda, hurry up and finish with whatever you're saying. But you're making a promise that you will be with you. Each person makes the promise, I'll be with you till we die. And that's very, very hard to stay with the same person for 70 years. For both people, by the way, not just one way. But we all take that. In my Tamil system, when you turn 60, you take your marriage vow again. I don't know, you must be having an equivalent of that in Gujarati also. No? Well, you better start it. AMA can. At 60, and now next year I'll be 80, I'll take the vow again.
At your age of 60, not the 60th anniversary.
No, no, no. At the age of 60 of the man. And then at the age of 80, you take the vow again. After that, you don't have to take the vow. So if you're Rupert Murdoch or somebody, you can walk out on your wife after that. But most of us are not. So I think these are some, there are equivalents of that in other communities. I'm not saying my community is better or worse. So I think purpose of a business is like raising a child at home or getting married. It's a very serious exercise. And making money is like saying, I'm going to have fun and I'll have babies in the process. It doesn't work that way. So I hope the example of Hasmukh Bhai Parekh, I'll give you one more example. Kiran Mazumdar, who set up a company called Biocon. And she was never, although she's a Gujarati by DNA, they were not a business family. But a set of accidents, which also I've written in a book, she became a business person. And she entered a very narrow field. It's called solid state fermentation. Solid state fermentation is like making a very precision form of fermentation. All the people's training, their systems must be so precise. Otherwise, the fermentation won't happen. She mastered it. Then somebody came and said, "What is your purpose?" I'm dramatizing it a bit just to make it interesting. Your purpose क्या होता है? Do you want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? अब ये सवाल है. You have become successful, you're worth something now, but you're a big fish in a very small pond because the solid state fermentation business market is only so much. And if you go to wet fermentation, which is a different technology, the market is so big. And she took the decision, I'm sure after a lot of strategy and thinking, that I will sell my business and enter wet fermentation. And now she's made a success of it, so she's worth a lot. Harsh Mariwala is the other way around. He entered a very big business because his family was king of coconut oil. But he said, "Ye kya yaar, 15 kilo mein, only Malayalis are eating this. Who will buy 15 kilos of coconut oil?" Sorry, any Malayalis here? Apologies. Nothing wrong in eating coconut oil. He said, "I want to make a small plastic bottle. Sabko sar pe lagana hai. It will be a smaller business. I'll be a big fish in a small pond." Exactly. So there are many ways to do it. But purpose is something you have to think about. And Mariwala is also very successful. Very successful. So if I was, luckily I'm not the president of AMA, I'd say I want AMA to always be doing at least one new thing every year. You're probably doing it anyway without defining it as a purpose or giving it a big name. And that's why you're an innovative, energetic LMA. Good luck.
We can open up. We can open up for any questions. Sunil, you have a question?
Thanks. You've really been very provoking thought, and you kept it at a very macro level, and therefore, it sort of allows one to meander through the various ideas that you have presented. One is about very practical that today business is experiencing the pressures of climate change, then geopolitical risks. We have seen one of the biggest pandemics in the process, and then in addition to that, there is a wave of technological change, and many other small variants of where you are positioned geographically and in the industrial sector. So to my mind, we are really at a place where a lot of changes are taking place in a relatively short period of time. So the traditional tools of change management, which looked at one particular aspect and developed a strategy for it and integrated it into the plan, may not be the best way because it has all interconnectedness to everything else. What I do in climate affects you, etc., etc. So if you want to see the tools that are going to be useful now, can we rely on a bunch of the old tools, or there is an emergence that you see of new tools and techniques to look at and the enterprise as a whole, given the changing environment?
That's a brilliant question, Sunil Bhai. I'm so happy you asked that question because a very perceptive question. Management needs to become homeopathic. It is now allopathic. If you go to an allopath, he is more and more specialized. I do surgery of the left shoulder, not the right shoulder. I can do surgery on your left ear, but not your right ear. It's very. But if you go to a homeopath, that person will ask you so many questions that look irrelevant. पेट में हजम होता है क्या, खट्टा लगता है कि मीठा अच्छा लगता है, because they are doing a whole body view. Management lacks that. Today we are teaching management across the road and in many such wonderful institutions. We've all benefited from it in allopathic fashion. Marketing, strategy, HR, and then students are also rewarded for class participation. मतलब दूसरों की बात नहीं सुनना है, अपना जबान खोलना है. So they will all put up their hand immediately and say Jack Welch is the biggest idiot. Mukesh Ambani, Ratan Tata, Gautam Adani, सब गधे हैं. Because the case study is giving the impression that they are all idiots. But they don't build up $100 billion empires by being an idiot. The plea that I'm making, and it's hidden in the book, that take a holistic view. And the holistic view that we have pointed out, and this is not the last word on the subject, the holistic view you're suggesting is you're too much focused on the left brain and thinking of what to do, what audacious goals to have, etc. Please think of the right brain also. And then you will get a more holistic view. But there'll be many other dimensions because when you use your right brain, the human part of it comes in. And financing comes in. We have the impression that long-lasting companies are very aggressive in finance. They borrow a lot. They're all dying one after the other. People who borrowed a lot. Borrowing is not a virtue. But how did you come to that conclusion? Because MBA finance courses taught you leveraged buyout. सब leverage करो. आपके पास ₹1 है तो ₹10 कैसे लेना है? ₹10 खर्चा भी करने का फिर और ₹10 लेना है. Actually, the long-lasting companies, Tata, Bajaj, Godrej, you look at them, they've all been conservative in financing. अपने औकात के अंदर रहो. So, I think we are in need in management to rediscover a whole body treatment rather than parts treatment. And the book makes a plea for that. And in 200 pages, whatever you can tell, you're telling, but people will hopefully apply their mind. And that's why I'm encouraging, if AMA would like to conduct some program on holistic management, it would be a very good initiative on your part. Here, I've got your faculty member also.
Sir. Yeah, Janil.
Sir, I just wanted to ask that considering the pace of change that Sunil sir also referred to, Singapore, for example, last year got a special budget in their government for upskilling people who are above 40 years. So if you are above 40 and if you want to go and learn at an institute, the government will fund or sponsor it. Now, assuming AMA can also play similar kind of rules and to drive these changes. So let's say one is to embrace the future, to anticipate it and to be able to adapt it. And then second part is to let the team do it. How do you drive the team to also do it? As an entrepreneur, as a promoter, I know this is what the future looks like. But at the end of the day, the team has to align with that future. Now, what could be those tools, those workshops, those formats look like where you also align the team onto that same vision that your promoters are also seeing?
Also a very good question. In fact, there's a little coverage of this, though it's not exactly answering the question the way you asked it, but that's all right. The principal point is that you having a vision and adapting to the future is irrelevant. How do you share that and how do you take into account their vision of the future? If they think nothing is changing, life will carry on, I'll work for the next 30 years, I'll happily retire with a little house in Navarangpura, then you having a vision doesn't make a difference. And I've taken two examples which are well known, but looking at the age of people here, They may not know the detail of it. Looking at my age, you will accept that I may have a perspective on it. You take the issue of national language. I'll take it not in a company level, but I'm taking it at a country level. In 1950 or 51, whenever they said Hindi will be the national language, and for 15 years, we'll give everybody time to adapt. So when I was a kid, I'm a Tamil born in Bengal, learning Hindi. Okay? I was sent to Rashtrabhasha Prachar Sabha, ye wo, to learn my Hindi. Come year 15, because when you say 15 saal ka adjustment time hai, like having chairman and managing director should be separate in corporate governance. It will happen after 3 years. Abhi dekh chodo yaar. 2 years and 9 months later, I'll start lobbying. Ye nahi chalega. Tamil Nadu went up in flames. Bangalore went up in flames. We all know. I think some of you may not know, but I want you to know. It literally went up in flames. And they said, we will not accept Hindi. But yet Hindi has become very widespread. It may not be the king's Hindi, may not be Modi ji's standard of Hindi. But even you go to Tamil Nadu now, people will speak in Hindi. What has changed? How did it happen? Fatwa that it's in the constitution that Hindi is a national language? No. But without knowing, they did not do this. Raj Kapoor, Devanand, Ashok Kumar, they chased pretty girls around a tree singing songs. And whether you're from Tamil Nadu or from Kashmir, the idea of chasing a pretty girl around a tree with a song on your lips is always appealing. Hindi went. And Hindi is much better understood. When I was growing up in Calcutta, my Bengali friends say, Ami Hindi Jani. And you ask them what to say a few words, they'll say, Hum bhapta isko lukiye dega. Now, only a Bengali will understand that kind of Hindi. No other person will understand. Hum bhapta isko lukiye dega. Today they speak Hindi. And the magic has happened because it's come up from the grassroots. I went to a place in Tamil Nadu. You can't even pronounce it. Tirutirapundi. You try saying it once, say. And they were watching Kaun Banega Karodpati. So I told them in Tamil, I said, what is this you're watching Kaun Banega Karodpati? Do you understand what's going on? He said, Enna sir. I'll translate it in English so that you understand. He said, Enna sir, what is there? When 1 crore is involved, how does it matter which language it is in? Sun lega, chalega. So this gives you the right answer to your question in a practical way, that you must let it seep down and bubble up rather than push it from the top. I'll give you one more example, which is a fantastic story, in my opinion, in India, family planning. Back in the 50s, we figured out we can't carry on with 3.5% population growth. So they said, Sabko bolo, they must have less children. So the DAVP made an advertisement which said, handsome boy, pretty girl, garlands, मुबारक हो शादी हो गया है अभी 5 साल के लिए बच्चे नहीं पैदा करना. Okay, I remember that campaign very well because I was just coming into college. Now, the truth of Indian society is, if the daughter-in-law is not produced for 5 years, there will be qayamat. Mother-in-law, sister-in-law, everybody will be inquiring, even today, but definitely 50 years ago. Nothing happened. Population growth rate continued. Then they thought, we are not training our people, we are not upskilling the people. Use the modern words, you know. Arey, kya upskill? You know, you had condoms and then you brought other forms, pills, this, that. Somebody said, you know, maybe we have not addressed the soft side. I'm imagining the conversation. I wasn't sitting there. How can you expect a little girl who's 25 years old to survive 5 years without producing a baby? So they changed the campaign. They now had a young man, handsome boy, pretty girl with a little child in their arms. Mubarak ho, pehla bachcha hua. That's dusra bachche ke liye 5 saal chodo. Now I'm going to make it dramatic. It worked. The fact of the matter is, from 3.7%, we have come down to 2.2% today. And if you leave out a few states in Madhya Bharat, most of us are at approximately replacement rate. But it's taken 50 years. So when you embrace the future, when you look for transformation, it has a very long cycle. Hindi did not, if you said, I want in 5 years national language, Hindi, you would have got this country in flames. If you said, we must bring the population, China did it. They brought population from there to there. But that technique won't work here. Sanjay Gandhi tried it for a short while. It didn't work. So you have to allow time. And it is evolutionary rather than by force. It is by diffusion. And then you will get people joining you. It's not surprising. Nobody is saying you want Viksit Bharat by 2029. I mean, if you said it also, nobody is going to believe you. 2047 is a safe date because none of us will be around, or many of us won't be around. And then wo dekha jayega.
We can take a question or two and then wind up. Anyone? Any question? Yes, please.
Hold it closer.
Oh, so it was a very nice and insightful session, which was very new learnings, which were being taught you by you and all. So my question is that, see, the industrialists of Gujarat, majorly the Ambanis and Adanis, their working styles are different.
Keep it closer.
Hello, yeah,
You can repeat.
hello. Yeah, so the work patterns of these bigger industrialists and businessmen like these Ambanis and Adanis, they are different from these traditional entrepreneurs like me also, which I'm running a small business. So the people management issues like conflict resolution and conflict management of making them working like a common pattern of styles and aligning the visions. So how to make them work with a common vision and in such a way that a small business at a one gradual scale it becomes a large conglomerate starting from till 10-15 years to scaling level, which is not gradually coming down to a zero level. So according to you, how we should work and how in order to make and sustain ourselves to become a bigger conglomerate? Like,
Let me repeat your question so that I'm answering the right question. Your question is not about Ambani and Adani.
yeah,
Your question is, if I'm a small business, how can I scale myself up so that I can be a successful business? Correct?
yeah.
Okay.
How they do these Ambanis, Adanis align their vision with the people at large in their organization?
I don't know how Ambani and Adani does it. If AMA can invite Mukesh Bhai, he can come and explain to you.
So the point is, as what you rightly mentioned, small businessmen, how can I be with
So here is
how can
my,
I be people in my style?
if you look at companies, and I've been very fortunate, I've worked in two companies, one is 90 years old, one is 130 years old. So, लंबे आयु के क्या राज है इस पे मैंने जरा सोचा है. My next book is coming in August on Jamshedji Tata, how he created a long life company. But you can say the same of Bajaj or Godrej, you know, there are also other long life companies. It is very tough to create a company. It is very tough to create a company with purpose. It is very tough to create a company which holds its purpose for 100 years. So it is like saying it's very tough to have a baby because there's lots of pain and this, and it's very tough to raise a baby to be an adult. But it's very tough to keep that baby's baby also coming. All of us have this in our own personal lives, and we know that many people lose their way. And my approach has been to study long life companies. You know, when you want to find हमारी आयु लंबी कैसे होनी है, people go and study Japanese in Honshu Island lived till 130. And then they'll find that he has a small whiskey every evening. They'll say, सब लोग whiskey पियो तो तुम. It's not a cause and effect. Everybody starts drinking one whiskey, then your life will come down, it won't go up. But they look at the package of practices that they eat grain, they eat protein, they eat this, they do exercise, they have good social conditions, etc. And then they'll write a book called Ikigai. Have you read this book, Ikigai? It is like Ayurveda, one of ours. And there is an Ikigai or an Ayurveda for companies also. If you want, I'll send you some of my articles on that, if it's helpful to you. But it has nothing to do with Ambani or Adani. मैं अपने औकात पे रहता हूँ, वहां नहीं जाता हूँ. समझ गया ना? But they are conservative in financing. They have a very sharp sense of purpose and identity. They are very consistent. And they run an ethical business. ब्रह्म मंत्र दे दिया आपको आज. अभी आप बनाइए कंपनी.
They stop eating when they're 80% full. The Ikigai.
That is called Hara Hachibu.
So I think thank you, sir. Certainly, it was a wonderful session. Lot to learn. Very keen and very keen to read the book. That we have books available outside also. Sir's book. Any question, of course, anything can be taken up offline, or you can communicate with us or sir. We will try to get his inputs on. But once again, sir, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to interact with you, to have your insights, and certainly the book will be very helpful, useful for everybody in and outside the industry also. So thanks again. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks on the people who are on the YouTube live, and we look forward to launching one more 20th book also, maybe next year or whenever, sir. Thank you. You can give your feedback on the QR code on the screen, please. Thank you.
Good luck with your
I must take your.
Sure. What's the name? Sing. And if you have any feedback for me, my email ID is on. If you want to see it useless, that's also acceptable. I don't have, but Amma can do it. I told them I'm happy to participate. I'm happy to participate. I don't have any interest in that. One man. So, if Amma arranges, I'm happy to come.
Jainil, Jaini.
Is that anything to do with Jain? Or it got nothing to do with Jain? Jain means knowledgeable person.
The English did it, not the Hindi guys. Thank you so much. In fact, we've taken the notes, sent to the secretariat on mail, the topic. Topic. I've already sent the summary of the program that we were looking at. And hopefully we'll
permanent. Not permanent. All the best. What is the first name of Radia? Divyesh. Divyesh. You all have wonderful God's names here. Huh?
There was difficult time. Hardly travel.
You're one of the great spirits of this institution.
So, would you like to keep the book in the folder, or should I put it in this bag? It's the other one.
Okay, you put it in the bag. I'll just take my ticket away so that
Okay.
something slips away.
Yes, yes.
You